Well, oh well, Lindsay.
We're
We
live.
we are live.
Yep.
Excuse me. We weren't here last week because we were gallivanting somewhere else. We should talk about that in a minute. We got Andy Powers on the show, which means we need to do an intro, get this thing started. Let's do this. Welcome to Taylor Primetime.
What time is it? What time is it? It's prime time. It's prime time. What time is it? What time is it? Prime time. It's prime time. Oh yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Tuesday night. Welcome to Prime Time, episode number 56, I believe. Unbelievable. Tonight, please welcome back Mr. Andy Powers. Hey, Andy, welcome back.
Hey, everyone.
As always, Lindsay Love.
Hi, everyone.
Cool lighting show. Hey, Lindsay. And your host, Mr. Jay Parkin, the host of Primetime.
Mom, I got a job. I'm the host of Primetime.
Yeah, you got a business card.
I got a business card. We should get business cards. Let's say, what time is it? And then, okay. Andy, thank you for the song. Andy Powers, thank you for coming back. Lindsay Love, it's great to see you. I got to hang out with you last week, though. We went to the old Las Vegas for the Latin Grammys. Lindsay, how was your week last week? What was your takeaway?
Oh my gosh, it's a loaded question, but it was it was a long week. It was an exciting week, and it was a good week for music, and it was really beautiful to see all the different cultures within the Latin community and the Hispanic community, just because there's so many cultures. A lot of times in America, sometimes we sum it up into one thing, but there's so many cultures within the Latin and Hispanic community, and so many different musical styles. And just coming into our suite and recording these beautiful acoustic sessions, and just I mean, it's a I don't know. I love music, and it's a good time to be alive.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Andy, I flew back early because we had an all company meeting that I had to produce, and I was talking to Andy Powers about it, and we were having a good chat about it. You're right. It's Latin music is. I mean, how many subgenres are there? I mean, it was as if every other musician who came in. So what we did for you guys who are new to Primetime, this is a Guitar Nerd talk show. So we went right into guitar nerdisms tonight. So we talk a lot. So I hope you guys are ready. But we had a suite at the MGM Grand, and we had a content capture there where we had artists come in and play music. We filmed them, so on and so forth. But it was, do you remember the Grammy count of Taylor players? How many Grammys? I think there were like 14 nominations. I think Taylor players walked away with about 8. I mean, it was
something like that. I think even higher, because I think Camilo had 10 on his own.
Camilo had 10 on his own. 5
or something like that. Yeah.
4 that were televised. Yeah. I mean,
so it was insane.
Yeah.
Anyway, Andy Powers.
And they're well deserved. I mean, the guy's awesome.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
We got to hang out at the Latin Grammys, and it was awesome. There's that. This episode, Giving Thanks for Guitars with Andy Powers. I thought it'd be a good, it's Thanksgiving week. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Don't forget to smash that like button. You know how this goes. We appreciate massive, what? Massive gaming monument. Yes, MGM. That is true. There were a lot of people playing games there and betting money. I'm afraid of gambling a little. I think it's scary.
I didn't get to do it. I mean, I
No.
don't mind like not serious, but like just having a little fun, like throw a couple, like a little bit, but didn't get a chance to do it. It's just
No, we
all
were
work, all work,
all work, no play. We were too busy.
no play.
No play. We got to listen. That's kind of play. So
That was
anyway. So we thought it's Thanksgiving week. What a better guest to have on, Andy Powers. And we're going to get right to it in a few minutes here. And we're going to go into, a little, what is Andy thankful for? 5 things Andy is thankful for at Taylor Guitars in 2021. We'll get there in just a second. Andy Lund, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Jay. I wish I could have gone to that event with you guys. I think that would have been a lot of fun. I talked to Juan. I heard the logistics were a nightmare getting in and out of Vegas, but other than that, it sounds like you guys had a great time.
There were some flight issues, but we're dealing with that on a global scale. We'll get through this flight situation coming up. Andy, where are you? Where, Andy Lund?
Tonight I'm in the North Woods, Jay.
Appreciate you coming in from the North Woods.
Sure.
Remember, it's a Guitar Nerd talk show. We talk a lot. We're gonna have some fun, some laughs. Andy Powers, get your questions ready for Andy. He's here to debunk any myths. I don't know what he's gonna debunk. Maybe
I
he'll
don't know
talk
if
about.
I can. I don't know if I can do that. I'll probably create some more, knowing my track record.
That's fair. I like that. Maybe someone in the feed could ask him what torrefaction is. We'll get there in a second.
No.
Okay.
That's a bit of a rabbit hole.
Oh, Andy wants to go into a rabbit hole, he said. Okay, remember, let's keep the someone said no politics. Exactly. I'm getting to that part right now. Let's keep the feed clean. Let's keep the nerd and guitar nerd. Let's keep this about guitars. If you're going to say anything derogatory or political or hateful, we will mute you. And we don't want that stuff here on this Guitar Nerd talk show. So let's move on to the next thing. Remember, there is trivia at the end of the show. We got a great trivia question tonight. We got a great trivia prize tonight. There is no hate. We do not have to sing a song about hugging haters, Andy Lund, but we are going to play a useless clip right now and do a little segment of what are you listening to. So here's a useless clip. Then maybe you can play a song. How's that?
All right.
All right, here we go.
Did you sing in the shower? Was it all about power? Was it delicate and slow? Was it heavy and low? What's new? What's new? What are you listening to? What did you listen to?
Well, I'll tell you, I listened to a pretty sweet B minor to B flat major movement in there. That was pretty awesome.
Yes, it's nice. It's nice.
Followed up by a E major 5 chord. Yes.
Yeah.
I love putting B flats next to
Nice.
E major. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Andy.
Well done.
Andy Powers. We love you. Thank you for coming on to the show. Oh, Andy
Where's the
Powers.
book
What
move?
what are you listening to lately?
It's a long list. In the last 48 hours, I've been doing a lot of, you kind of get to certain times of the month when you have to like sit down and pay your bills and do the housekeeping, that kind of thing. So I've been doing a lot of that. And so because of that, there was a pretty long list of things that got played. So if you want to hear some of the highlight reel,
Yes.
it started with Nat King Cole Trio because
That's good.
Yeah.
So
because
Oscar Moore is the guitar playing in that environment amazing, right? Oscar Moore's good. He's got the coolest like this old blonde arch top that John D'Angelico built. Just amazing guitar. So stylish, so good. That kind of turned, it's like one of those games of makes you think of, you know. So then I started listening to Oscar Peterson with Joe Pass playing. Also super, super, super good. I mean, that's amazing. But then it turned into Oscar Peterson's trio. They made a record called We Take Requests, or We Get Requests. So good. If you haven't heard it, you should probably, at least when the show is done, you should probably go find it. It's really good. It's so strong. I mean, some of the most stylish trio playing ever. No guitar in that one, but really great. And then that turned into, needed a change of pace. So I listened to some Ventures records. That was really cool. I still really like the Ventures. It's like, you know, it's a thing. It's all cool guitar music. There was a band I got turned on to. They were a kind of a surf spacey band from Helsinki, Finland, called Laika and the Cosmonauts, that another buddy turned me on to. They kind of play similarly themed or sounding music, so I listened to them for a while. And then I started listening to a couple of records that Brad Paisley made more recently. Okay, not everybody is a fan.
We were just talking about
so
Brad
not
Paisley.
Everyone is a fan of his songwriting. I am, because I think it's super clever.
Yeah.
But his guitar playing is so good.
Oh, my
It's so good. So good.
It's so good. The guy is such a great musician. And then
I'm with you.
There was another band called Asleep at the Wheel. They're kind of a Texas, like a Western swing sort of band. And they made a couple of records, some of the more recent ones that I've been listening to that are really good. And one that Brad Paisley had done a thing with. The whole record's really great. I think it's called New Routes, with Ray Benson on guitar. That was really cool. So yeah, a lot of variety, a lot of flavors. But it's kind of one of those scenarios where one thing makes you think of another thing. And so before too long, you're listening to something pretty far out there.
Yes.
But a lot of good flavors.
Wow. That's a long list, Andy. I've been listening to a lot of music too. But Lindsay, what have you been listening to?
Okay, I'll do like a quick little run because it's kind of been spread evenly. I've been listening to some Roy Hargrove quintet stuff. He's an amazing trumpet player, right? If you don't know him, listening to some of his stuff, a couple of different albums, really good. I'm all over the board. I've been listening to Terrence Martin, who's also an amazing session player, key player, and producer. He released his album with a bunch of heavy hitters like John Baptiste and Robert Glasper. So I'm listening to his new album, Drones. I mean, there's so many. Silk Sonic just came out. I've been playing Silk. I mean, it's a very well done, authentic album. It's not like, it doesn't feel gimmicky. It feels very thoughtful. They got Bootsy Collins on it. I mean, they got all the right people. They have all the right ingredients, and they did it. So it's a very well done album. That's been on repeat. Man, there's a lot of music. I'll stop there. Those three have been big. Yeah.
Andy Lund, what have you been listening to?
Well, I recently just got kind of an old school stereo setup, and I've got this sweet late 70s, early 80s Marantz receiver, and a turntable that was made in Japan for a company that there used to be things called stereo stores. Some of our listeners, watchers probably know that, but I bet Lindsay didn't see too many stereo stores. Did you? Do you remember any?
I mean, it would be. I was young. I was middle school. I do remember stereo stores
outside of like Best Buy or something. But there used to be places where you could go. Anyway, I got this old school system set up, B&W speakers. It sounds great. And Jay, I've been listening to this thing called FM radio.
Oh,
yeah. It's kind of weird. Like they play things on there, and then like there's songs that you've heard in the past, but then there's also these commercials that are really nasty. But anyway, I've been listening to a lot of FM, but I have been kind of stuck on this Beethoven record. Can you see that?
Yeah. Who is playing? Who is conducting?
This is Sonata number 23 in F minor, Sonata number 31 in A flat major, Adolf Drescher piano.
Uh-huh.
Outrageous. This is like my breakfast jam. Put this guy on the turntable, make the coffee, turn the record over, turn it over. So
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, another really good one that's slightly different flavor, but if you're kind of into that right now, go check out Glenn Gould playing the Goldberg Variations.
I think I have some
Really?
recordings, some Glenn Gould recordings.
Really strong. He did a pretty famous landmark recording of it in '55, and then revisited it in '81. And it was remarkable to hear, if you have the wherewithal to listen to both recordings of that suite back to back. It's remarkable to see the difference that his advancing age played in it. It's
Interesting.
Totally different interpretation.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
super cool.
Real quick, I've been listening to a lot of Latin music.
As you should.
Lindsay.
Fair.
Silk Sonic record I'm right there with you. I think it was so classy. It's well done. Very organic. It's very real, authentic, like you said. Yeah, I like it a lot. I'm not gonna lie. I won't lie. My mother is watching. Taylor Swift redid her Red record, and I have been listening to it. And if you're not a Taylor Swift fan, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say I don't care. You should go listen to this record. She did a really, really, really great job of remaking the songs the way she wanted to. Kudos to her. And I know that from time to time we see her playing other brand guitars, namely Gibson. She has been playing her Red Taylor again a lot for this record. That's really good. And of course, we can't not say that each of us haven't. Well, maybe you guys haven't, but the new Adele record is out. Oh, I cried like 45
really
times before
strong
I got
record.
to the end of it. It is
really good.
She is magical. So that's that. Those are the three main.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was funny. I got a chance to hear her sing some time ago. She was playing here in San Diego at the House of Blues.
Oh.
And Maren and I, my wife and I, went in and heard her sing. And it was back when she was doing a lot of blues kind of stuff still. So she was playing some guitar, some bass, some like fretted bass, and singing these blues tunes. And oh my gosh, she was like killing it. It was so good.
No,
man, wow, what a voice! What a musical
She's amazing.
Personality.
She's amazing.
She's magical.
She's really good.
Well, all right. Let's get into the show. Andy's on. We can't waste any more time here talking about us. Let's talk about Andy. So, Thanksgiving week. Welcome back, Andy Powers. You've been doing a lot lately. Let's get into that real quick. What have you been working on lately, Andy? Are you allowed to tell us?
Some things yes, some things no. There are always projects that we're working on because things take time. They take a long time in some cases. Sometimes you want to try them and you got to let them sit there for, I don't know, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years until you realize now is the right time to do them. So we've been doing that. In a lot of ways, it's the way it's kind of the way a farmer works. They have their planting seasons and their harvesting seasons, and so we've been doing some planting lately to work on projects that we know will take some time, that are going to be a lot of fun eventually when they get here. So we've been doing some of that, and then a couple of other fun new things that are a little closer to home. They're a little closer to what we already have been working on. So I'm pretty excited for that. For those, I'll say, being plural and more, as in more than one. So yeah, a lot of woodworking, a lot of guitar making, some exploration kind of stuff. That's not at all very specific, but that's about as much as I can say.
We always trying to say, yeah. I mean, you're going to get.
I mean, part of it is that a lot of our work on a day-to-day level has been managing and figuring out how to be building the guitars that we already like to make.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you guys have paid close attention to it, but some materials are a little difficult to get right now. And some things are taking a little longer than they normally would, especially if they're coming in via a container ship. So like at one point, I'll put it in perspective. At one point, I think about 3 weeks ago, something like that, I was talking with some of our guys, and we're kind of working through the difficulty of container ships not arriving or not getting unloaded. And wow, okay, there's 100 ships outside of Long Beach right now. And so I started kind of doing the arithmetic. I went, okay, each one of those boats on average has 20,000 20-foot long container units. So you do the math, you go, wow, that's a lot of them. And so then you put them in your mind, you put them all end to end lengthwise, and then you go, okay, well, if it's on a truck, it's almost 40 feet long. So you put all those mentally on a truck, parked bumper to bumper, and you realize, geez, that's a line that's like 15,000 miles long. And you turn that into imaginary freeway of 5 lanes of traffic, semi-trucks parked bumper to bumper. That's like going from Los Angeles to New York and then, halfway down the East Coast. Oh man, that box is never going to get unloaded. So there's some things like that where we've gone, wow. So that those woods or those materials that we're working with right now and kind of watching the pile disappear, you realize this is not easy. So we've been doing some of that lately, and that's taken up some time. I think we're in a lot of ways we're more fortunate than most because we've got a variety of materials that we get to work with. Like lately, we've been really thankful to be relying on the urban forestry project,
right? And
looking at more of those urban woods, going, man, these are right here in our backyard. That's amazing. We can still get them. Great, let's build those. And fortunately, the guitars are super fun to play. Musicians are having a great time with them. There's demand for them. Awesome. We'll focus on that right now until these other materials arrive. So, it's kind of this, there's been a bit of a juggling act, kind of opening up the refrigerator and going, what's for dinner tonight? Let's see what we got. What can we get?
I love it. I'm thankful if we're going to do this game. I'm thankful for having people like you, Andy, and our supply chain folks who deal with that, because I'd be bad at it. I would stomp my feet and kick the tires.
We are so fortunate. We have the best guys, the best crew in the business. And
absolutely.
I say that tongue in cheek because it's not really the best in the guitar business, but they're like the best. They're like
in the business.
Best of the best in any business. Yeah. So we're very fortunate. I'm very grateful to have their help right now.
Yeah, we are too. That's for sure. Okay, so that's what you've been up to. So let's dive into our one question. Our one question is a 5-part question. As you know, it's very simple. What are 5 things that you are thankful for? Taylor things. Let's make these Taylor things that you are thankful for in 2021. If you can tell us that. Wait, Andy, do you have a song about being thankful?
Maybe. Yes, it's perfect. Right here.
Right here.
It's perfect.
It could be for the long weekend off, or maybe just the food. Might be for the time with your family, or football and food. For friends who are dear, what are you thankful for this year?
Yes.
Nice one. I like that.
I'm thankful for Lund tunes as well. Let's throw that up on the screen, Phil.
Yes.
We are too. All right. Let's get back to this. What are 5 Taylor things that you are thankful for in 2021, Mr. Powers?
Is it okay to say that I'm thankful for the relatively good health of our employees? I mean, as a population, Taylor Guitars worldwide is, man, we're like about 1,400 people. So it's a pretty big group of folks. And relatively speaking, we've been very healthy. And so I'm thankful. I mean, it sounds a little maybe not Taylor specific, but for me, looking at this group of folks that I get to work with, I'm really thankful for that. Mm-hmm. And so that one right now feels like it ought to be pretty high on that list.
One. All right. What's the next one, Mr. Powers?
Oh, I'm afraid that once I open the can of worms, I am thankful that we have been using and getting to use a lot of urban timber. In some ways, it's a practical choice, but in other ways, man, it has been, I feel so fortunate to get to start working with some of these materials, because you'll see in the coming future, we're getting set to introduce, surprise, we're getting to introduce additional species that are coming out of that forest model. And so we started with chamois ash, and in the last couple of years, we've been working with some other woods that are grown in the same ways and harvested in the same ways. And man, a couple of these are just blowing my mind, like unbelievably good material, and they're right here in our backyard. So I feel particularly excited and grateful for that opportunity to continue doing that. It's been wonderful to, sorry, I'll move on to number 3. I've been really thankful to watch the work that our artist relation team has been doing with a wider variety of musicians around the world. So like you got to go to Las Vegas and see the Latin Grammys. I'm a little jealous because I wasn't there, but man, I've got a big taste for a lot of flavors of music. And within that space, you look at, we call it Latin music and try to put, air quotes around it or something like that.
Latin music, right.
And you go, I don't think I could even list or name all of the different subgenres and musical cultures that get sort of smashed together in that thing. And I love it. It's so great. There's so much good music there. And so I've been really grateful to watch kind of this expansion of the guitars that we're making go into a wider variety of musical hands and fit these different spaces. I'm really thrilled with that. So that's I'm pretty floored with it. I mean, I used to, well, I still get to play music like that pretty often, but in a lot of different varieties. So I think that's really fun. And at some point in our guitar building lifespan, I think it would be very enjoyable to return to building some of the, I mean, some people here, we call them ethnic instruments. And I think of the guitar as an ethnic instrument. Every instrument is an ethnic instrument somewhere, right? But all the different subcategories of string instrument that should exist. I mean, the requintos, the cuatros, the tres cubanos, like all that, bajo sexto, bajo quinto. Like, I would love to be building all of those. So at some point, someday in the future, I think we should get there. I think that's just great. So,
man, we had a group of 3 ladies who came in, violin, bajo sexto, and another one. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was
high pitch, low pitch.
It was small, super small, but it had 5 strings, 4 strings.
I have to look.
It didn't have 6 strings. Anyway, we'll get to it. But they were performing at this event that we had, and they asked us, "Do you want us to play a Taylor?" And every single one of us on the AR team were like, "No,
don't play what you need to play.
No. Play what you play. We want to hear this." And the woman with the bajo sexto was absolutely. I'll send you a clip. We couldn't upload
I'd
it
love
in
to
time
see it.
here, but
I
they
would
Oh,
did
love
yeah.
to see it.
they did a Nirvana cover
Yes.
into a Zeppelin cover.
Into Zeppelin. Yes.
Into Zeppelin, and the singer used the bajo sexto. Well, there were 3 vocalists, but
Yeah.
the one of them, the one in the middle, the lead singer,
Yeah.
used it as the kick as she was. I mean, it was unbelievable. I'll send it to you. We
Yeah.
would get
Wow.
we would get dinged if we put it on YouTube right now for the licensing, but so I'm sorry, everyone, that I
Fair
can't
enough.
share it with you, but
Fair enough.
let me
I'd
tell
like
you,
to see that.
it was musical. It was beautiful. All right, Andy, that was 3. What's number
All
4?
right. Number 4, I am incredibly grateful for our kind of the willingness of our production teams to come
Yeah.
back day after day and put in odd hours, long hours to continue building all these guitars that we dream up. I mean, I don't think you guys realize how many guitars we have been building and the work, the difficulty that this year has required. I mean, it is absolutely staggering. Building guitars in normal times is difficult. It's a challenge. It's a hard instrument to build. It's a hard instrument to build well. And we do a great job of it. And I'm thrilled with that. But to do it under what feels like adverse circumstances and rise to the occasion and feel everybody sort of pushing at the same thing, like, yeah, we're gonna build guitars because people need to be playing music. They want to be playing music with these guitars. That just blows me away. Every day it feels like I'm going to the shop and I'm, walking around with all these comrades, these colleagues that I get to work with, and everybody's coming at it with the same mindset, going, hey, people want to be playing these guitars. Let's do a great job to put one into the hands of the musicians who want them. So I'm incredibly grateful for that. And I'd say finally, from this past year, I'm grateful to be able to see our transition through to a fully employee-owned ESOP. That felt like a high watermark in the history of our company. And to go through this along with Bob and Kurt and proceed through all the preparations, the legal stuff, the finance stuff, all the bits and bobs and the effort that goes into that, but then to be able to transition it all the way through into this thing where we're now assured continuity well past our own lifespans into the future, building these instruments and maintaining this company, this thriving enterprise that we love. And that's like icing on the cake, but man, what good icing. So it feels like this year we have a lot to be grateful for. I mean, there is a lot.
I would agree.
Yep.
Let's do this. Let's go. Okay, we're going to pretend that we're at the Thanksgiving table, the primetime table, real quick, and we're going to go around just to everybody real quick. We can say a couple of things we're thankful for. That'd be fantastic. Lindsay Love, what are you thankful for?
Taylor.
Taylor, thanks.
Yep, Taylor, thanks. I would say Andy said 2 of them, so it's going to sound redundant, but one being the production team. So I used to work in production, so I understand that the demand, on the production employees right now, and they're, like Andy said, they're all just rising up to the challenge, and it's a big challenge to produce the amount of guitars they are with the staff. With our HR team hiring at the pace they are, but still with the staff that is in the departments, to be producing so many more guitars. So I'm very thankful for them, because without them, guitars aren't getting out. So them, and then artist relations team. I think in the last year, like Andy said, the diversity, the genres, the reach that our guitars are going into, and these different genres. I'm working with hip hop artists that are using acoustic guitars. Pop art. It is quite the time to be a guitar player. Just the guitar is alive and well, and our guitars are guitars of choice for a lot of players. So I'm very thankful for that, for music, and our guitars being Desired. Oh, before you go on, were you talking about the bass player, the guitar, the Mexican guitarron or whatever it's
Yeah.
called? Is that what you're talking about?
It's not a
Jay?
guitarron. It's a
No,
bajo sexto or
that
bajo
was a
quinto.
yeah, it was a bajo sexto. I'm talking about the little guitar, the little thing.
Oh, I thought you were talking about. Okay.
That's almost shaped like a bajo sexto, but it's tiny.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And it has an odd number of strings, but it's not a trace. Anyway, we'll figure this
No,
out.
it wasn't a trick.
No, we'll get there.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
thank you, Lindsay. Andy Lund, are you done? You're done. Are you done? You got any
I'm
more?
done.
You're
No,
done.
those two are the big ones. I'm done.
Okay.
Andy.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
Andy.
Andy Lund. Andy Lund. Besides the North Woods, what are you thankful for, Andy?
To riff off of what Lindsay just said, the guitar is alive and well. And I don't know if all of you know this, but if we can continue to keep our factory healthy and we can continue to get the materials that we want to have and to put into production, we will build 212,000 guitars this year. And let that sink in for a second. That's 40,000 more than we ever have in a year that is, as Andy has said already, really difficult to do anything. And it's crazy because you know, it's not, there are lots of, you go to, you know, you talk to people, if you're trying to buy a guitar, or, you know, they'll say that they don't have the inventory that they want to have because the people, they're flying off the shelves. They're flying off the shelves. Every brand is flying off the shelves everywhere in every music store in every country. And it is a boom. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for more guitar players this year. You know, I think
Man,
it's one of the,
if you don't mind me riffing and adding something to that, just to put things in perspective. Every one of those guitars has 20 frets. Think about how many frets that is to install in the course of a year. Think about how many side dots, how many strings to put on, how many tuners to install. And the size of this effort it kind of blows my mind. But yeah, man, Andy, you're totally right on the money.
Yep.
The explosion of interesting music that is coming out of this I think it's unprecedented for a couple of reasons. One of them is that you have a wider, more diverse range of guitar players. The musical landscape is far more diverse than it used to be.
mm-hmm.
And it's more accessible than it used to be. And you're seeing all of these amazing people come into a musical landscape and start creating this great stuff that's so unique and reflects their own personality and their own perspective on things. And you're totally right. It's like, it feels like this enormous creative explosion of cool guitar music.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally agree with you. Sorry for interrupting. Continue on.
That's okay. That's 1,272,000 guitar strings, not counting 12-string guitars.
Wow.
It's hard to make a list of 5 for me, Jay, because it's all so wrapped up together. But I think I'm very thankful for it. You know, in my part of the business, the team that is handling logistics right now for us is top notch, firing on all cylinders. The communication that goes on between our warehouse people, our finance people, the truckers, the people who book the vessels, the freight forwarders is unbelievably complicated right now, and it's moving all the time. And I watched the communication. I'm really blown away by how much we are actually getting done and getting shipped. But all of that and all the production that Andy spoke of and all the things that we can feel good about, pat ourselves on the back about this year are all really based upon the foundation that Bob and Kurt built when they started the company, because they have always done things to make it possible to get through a tough time like the last 18 months have been, and not only get through but thrive. So I'm very thankful for those two fine gentlemen and the leadership that they continue to provide even after all these years.
That's awesome, Andy. I'll go quick. I'm thankful for, I mean, I'm going to, follow in what all of you had said right there. But let's just lean into our production company or our department real quick. Like Andy said, tireless. Our logistics team, tireless. There's something that, Guitar Center is an example. They need all their guitars, and we got to send those guitars to a location and then distribute them from their hub to all of the stores. That's usually how it happens. Well, our logistics team is figuring out ways to get these guitars directly to those stores so that people have these things and these instruments in their hands for this holiday season. Like, there are things that I've seen this year from all of our teams, from management down, from just different ideas. Grateful for the fact that, our artist relations team, just like you said, we've in the last year, excuse me, we've started to work with so many diverse genres of music, and it's beautiful to see. It's beautiful to work with different artists. I mean, I often work with heavier artists, a little bit more rock artists, punk rock players. We've got legendary people who are now picking up Taylor guitars because why? Well, none of the other, you guys reached out and said, hey, little things like a relationship go a long way. Grateful for Juan in this last week. Our artist relations representative for Latin America is he is a magician. He's musical and he's magical. Let's create a word for that, but that's what he is. And I would just like to just do something real quick. I'm grateful for our marketing team, because when I started here, it was this big, and now it's this big. It's not much larger than it was. Some people have come, some people have gone, some people have decided to move on to other things in their careers. But I have a team of people that work with me on the content team. And if I am to do something real quick, I would like to try. Oh, Lindsay, keep me honest. I am thankful for Tim, Craig, Scott, Dan, Fedor, Corey, Sarah, Nicole, Carly, Lisa, Serge, Rolly, Lindsay, Tim, Godwin,
Matt. Don't forget Matt.
Hold on. Matt, well, he was my icing, to be honest. Matt is my icing.
He messed up your icing.
You messed up my icing, but it's okay. We have Patrick. We have
Ryan.
I got both Dans.
I got
Sarah.
You got everybody.
I got everybody. I think I got everybody here.
Newly added.
Dylan Van Fleet. Dylan. We got Dylan. Okay, we did it.
Jim.
So that's
Jim Curlin. Jim. You can't forget Jim.
Well, we get there. So on the marketing team, we also have Jim Curlin. We all know Jim Curlin. But I am very, very grateful for this gentleman by the name of Matt Steele. He's in the feed right now helping us out. I was responsible for social media for quite a long time. And I have, in the short period of time that he has been here, learned so much on how to be better at social. We've taken our TikTok channel from 0 to north of 250,000 followers in a very short period of time, based on simple things that we could do better. I applaud you, Matt. Thank you. I applaud you, Lindsay, the whole artist relations team. I'm grateful for a lot of things. I think people are ready to get their questions answered by Andy Powers.
I think so.
So that was fun. We got to say thanks for everything. Let's do this, Andy. I think it's time for a rapid fire song. Do you have one? He says. I'm thankful for Andy's songs.
Yes.
Rapid fire. joke, ain't talking about mirrors, ain't talking about smoke. Rapid answers is the goal. It's how we rock, it's how we roll on rapid fire. Rapid fire.
Oh, hold on. Here you go. I got a good question for Andy Powers here. We got to go right back to this one. It's at 6:22 p.m. PST, and that is: will Taylor guitars ever make ukuleles?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Eventually.
We got that. Rapid fire.
Rapid. I was trying to go quick. I love those little things. I have a long history of making them, and I really would love to build them someday.
Love it. Eric has a question. Will there be more series with cedar tops?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love cedar. It's got a flavor, so it has to be the right guitar. But for a lot of things, for a lot of guitars, it does work really well. It pairs well with a lot of different woods. The supply of it tends to be, it kind of ebbs and flows based on what's available. And so sometimes you get cedar, not so much. And other times you get cedar and it's really good. And so we tend to use it more on a limited edition basis when we get it. But yeah, I love working with it. I love the sounds you can make with it. And so, yeah, I would expect to do more of that.
All right. I had another question here. This is interesting. Maybe you can help us with this question, Andy. What percentage of the guitar market does Taylor have now? All questions. Let's do this.
All questions.
Large.
Off the top of my head, it's hard to say because usually it gets broken down into different categories. And so you see, like maybe if somebody has $2,000 to $3,000 to spend on a guitar, well, that's like one category, and we have a big chunk of that. And if somebody has $1,000 to spend up to like $2,000, well, that's like a category, and we have a big chunk of that. So I don't know off the top of my head, but it's quite a lot. A lot of people are really enjoying the guitars that we're making, and for that we're very grateful. Of the electric guitar world, not so much. Someday it'd be fun to build some things I got in mind, but maybe that'll change.
Electric guitars. What are those? We did an electric
They're loud
guitar.
guitars.
We did an electric guitar shows, and some people didn't like it. All right, I got another question here. How about Walnut as a Tonewood? Andy, how do you feel about Walnut?
It is one of my favorites. It's amazing. It's so good in so many different ways. Like from a woodworker's perspective, there's a reason Walnut is one of the classics. I mean, it's got it's like the holy trifecta, and then a couple extras. It saws well, it dries well, it sands well, it glues well, it finishes well, and it even smells good. On top of all those things, it makes a really great sounding guitar. In fact, this last toward the end part of this last summer, we got to build a run of guitars. I think we call them 700 series, but it was a limited. It was a custom guitar that we attached a limited edition label to, but they were total customs for us. It was some of the most extravagantly figured, beautiful walnut I've ever got to work with. We had bought it years and years ago, pre-pandemic. I guess that we use that word like it was pre-war now, but pre-pandemic. And we had resawed it. We dried it real carefully over several years. And I was kind of like sitting on this stash to go, yeah, I really want to build these. And so we finally got to build these this past summer, and man, those things were great. I love those guitars. So yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Amazing. Mr. Lund has a question.
So that last question reminded me of how I was stumped a couple of weeks ago on Primetime when a customer asked, we were talking about Tonewoods, and a customer asked, how would you describe the difference between an all Koa guitar and an all walnut guitar? And my answer was, well, to my ear, they're pretty similar they're hardwoods. They're going to do, in some ways, they're going to behave the same way. But I would like to hear what Andy's answer is to that question.
They're going to behave pretty similar in a lot of ways, actually.
Okay.
Your response is a good one, because one of the biggest things that you'll hear is that it's a hardwood top. Okay, well, right away, that puts you into a certain physical category of how the guitar can work. But as far as woods go, walnut and koa will behave similar in that they have similar weight, similar density, the way vibration or motion will move through them and be absorbed as they move through them is kind of similar. So you're going to hear a pretty similar result at the end of the day. Now, that's kind of the technical answer. The other side is that every single one of those pieces is a little different. And so you're going to hear the uniqueness of this koa top versus that walnut top, or that walnut top versus another walnut top. They're going to be different. And there's going to be a range between them based on the density of that piece versus this one. And so there still is variation in there. But really, with a lot of these guitars, by the time you add up all the variables, I mean, think about all the things that you're listening to, because you're not hearing just the parts of a guitar, or even the one species of wood. You're hearing the whole thing. So you're listening to those woods, that body shape, that design, that set of strings, that pick that the player is holding, the person who's playing it. All of those factors matter. And so largely, they're going to sound like guitars.
True.
I mean, it sounds kind of silly to say, but they are going to be relatively similar to each other. If you want to get super nuanced, I mean, like Lindsay's water tasting, and the nuance of this versus that versus, bottled this and bottled that and distilled this and all that. If you want to get that level of nuance, koa has this sweetness that develops. It's like it takes a while to ripen, and when it becomes riper over time, it has this thing that's undeniable. And so you hear that develop as the guitar ages. With a walnut guitar, when it's first strung up, it'll sound relatively similar to the koa guitar, or even an all mahogany guitar for that matter. It's going to be within the same kind of ballpark. But as the thing ages, it will slowly go its own direction, and its own flavor develops later in life. So it's going to have a slightly drier sound. It's going to have like a little more fundamental strong sound. But the minute you first put strings on it, and probably the first time you try it out in a guitar shop, when the guitar is very new and very fresh, they're going to be very similar. Really, the personalities come out later in life after they've been played a long time.
All right.
Sorry, that was not at all a rapid answer.
Great answer.
I apologize.
No, it's a great answer.
Well, we'll rapid answer a couple of these real quick. Okay, here's this one. Fred. Andy, would Taylor consider making a 1 7/8 inch nut width, 12 fret 312?
Oh, I'd love to. That would be a super cool guitar to make. I like a wider nut width when it's kind of the right guitar. We don't do it at this moment because we don't have the tooling to build it. And that sounds like a silly thing because it's just, it's an extra 1/8 of an inch on your ruler. But the way that we build guitars means that everything has to be within a tolerance of a few thousandths. And so making a change like that essentially means a whole suite of really fancy tools. So yeah, at some point in the future, we probably will. It'd be really fun to do. And I can totally understand why you'd want it. It makes a lot of sense.
Cedar GT, Lisa says.
That's a good flavor. I built a couple and I like those, but we haven't done them yet. I still have to work out a few refinements, but yeah, that would be a really cool flavor to make.
You built a couple? Are they just in your shop? Because I want to come play with
I'm
them.
not telling.
Where are they?
Where are they, Andy?
Oh, it's a really neat flavor because the response of cedar works really well with that string tension profile. It's a super good guitar. So a couple little details to work on, but yeah, someday.
All right. Rob has a question. How about being able to switch necks, say on my 310, so that it become a baritone? Oh, interesting.
Now that one's a little more complicated. That's an interesting idea. It's the biggest challenge isn't so much the size of the neck, because you could shape a neck to fit the right pocket. The challenge is the scale length and then the string compensation. So even if you were to build like we use, I really like a 27-inch even. It's a theoretical string length, because by the time you put your string compensation in, it's longer than that. But I like a 27-inch scale length for a baritone. That's right in the kind of a nice sweet spot. It's almost the same thing as adding an extra fret to, what would that be? It's a little less than a 25.5-inch scale. I think on a 25.5-inch, if you add an extra fret, it ends up like 27 inches plus a couple thousandths. So it's a little longer than that, but it would be almost like building a 15 fret neck and putting it on the same body. So theoretically, yeah, you could do that. But where it starts to get a little dodgy is the bridge and string compensation with the saddle don't necessarily fit for both of them, because you need a little different setup. And then ideally, you do voice the guitars differently to fit the different tension range and register. So physically, you could kind of make it work out with a lot of work, but it's going to fall into the category of working but not working well, if that makes sense. So it's better to have a baritone guitar and your 310.
That makes sense. Bruce has a question here. What does Andy think about Granadillo as a tonewood for larger bluegrass guitar? It's a
great suggestion. I like Granadillo a lot, actually. It's not used as commonly in the guitar world, more in the flamenco and classical guitar world. We've used it. We built some limited edition guitars because I found some neat stuff. But yeah, it's basically a hard, dense rosewood. Has a response that's very similar to one of the hard, dense rosewoods like Honduran or something like that. One of the interesting things with Granadillo is that it's a relatively common name that encompasses like 3 or 4 different species that are all different, unique species. The most common one isn't actually a Dalbergia rosewood family wood. But yeah, it's a great tone wood for a back and sides of a guitar. If you're using it in a traditional kind of a thing for playing bluegrass or for a real powerful, like bell-like response, be a great suggestion. Great wood. Put like either a Lutz or Adirondack top on it. Killer guitar.
I love it. Hey, so Tobias has a question, Paul Tobias, and I think we should create some sort of like Batman and Robin, like pow, like sound effect when he has a question. That would be really cool, by the way. No, ready? Kapow! Right? Will custom grand theaters be an option someday? Listen to this guy. Oh.
I would like to, and I think that they should, and I'm sure that they will, but not yet. The reason is when we build custom guitars, the way that we like to put them together, we give a whole bunch of options, and not all of the options work well. You can't just mix and match like you were taking parts out of different bins on the production floor and put them together and know that it's going to work really well. It'll probably work, but it might not work really well. And so we like to kind of refine those options and refine the structure and the architecture of the different woods, different designs, so that when they do get matched together, we know they're going to be working well. And so with the Grand Theater, the GT bodies, we haven't yet refined a lot of those different options, just like the cedar tops. There's some little subtleties that we'd want to work on to make sure that they're always going to work well before we do it.
There's so many good questions. Thank you, Andy. It was great. All right, hold on here. there's one for what's that?
I was saying I saw a couple that were early on that I think we might have missed that are actually.
I
really
have
good.
some marked that I'm going to go back to because there's some longer ones that we need some time for. This one's good for Andy Lund. Question: what glorious tone words are waiting to be discovered in the North Woods? All right.
Yes.
All right. Here's one.
Walnut. Just say walnut.
Walnut.
You'll be right.
Walnut. Torrefaction. Okay. Anything new on the horizon for Taylor guitar pickups?
For acoustic pickups. We've been real happy with the way that ES2 is working. We have some other technologies that we're starting to work with, mostly on the preamp side. And so if you look at an acoustic guitar pickup, it's interesting in that it's a very inexact science. Everyone wants to talk about an acoustic guitar pickup as it's the most natural thing, it's the best thing, it's the. And you know what? It works really well. And what we're ultimately after is a musical sound. And there are some interesting ways to try and gather that. So our pickup system is largely a pickup gathering device. It's an electromechanical thing, that little capsule. And then what do you do with the signal after it? What do you do with it once you've gathered that piece of information? You're going to manipulate it in one way or another to give yourself a musical result. So some of the work that we've been doing lately is actually on the preamp side to give different voicings to the incoming source. So there's more to come. We're never done.
That's interesting. I like this topic. Let's find more. Oh, I got another question here. That's a good one. David. Will we see more Builder's Edition in the 300 series? I own two 324 CEs, two different tunings. Ooh, what do you think about that? 300 series Builder's Editions, Andy.
Ooh, it sounds like a grand concert with the Urban Ash. That's a cool guitar. I haven't built one of those yet. Maybe someday. The Grand Concert's actually a really hard Builder's Edition guitar to make. I think that's probably the most difficult one because the small body and the tight curves of that contoured bevel cutaway, it's a really tough piece of woodworking. So I'd have to think about the voicing of that, how it would get used. Maybe someday. That'd be a neat guitar to make. That'd be a really neat guitar to make. With the questions on this, since it's a little out of my wheelhouse. Is it okay to ask questions both directions? Because I'm curious. That player has two of them for different tunings, and I'm curious what the tunings are and how they're changing setups or whatnot to fit those different tunings. Because on that guitar, that Urban Ash guitar, it's an ultra linear, really interesting response, and so I've noticed that guitar is very adaptable to a lot of different styles and a lot of different setups. So I'm kind of just sort of collecting versions that I've heard of different players using. So anyway,
maybe we'll get an answer.
It'd be interesting to me.
Let's ask a couple of questions and then maybe we'll get an answer. That'd be great. Okay, Carlo has a good question here. What is your opinion on tone right and whether it would help the aging process of woods like koa?
We were told to stay out of politics, right?
All right. Pass.
Some people really like it. In the right context for the right instrument, I've heard it make improvements. In some circumstances, I've seen it not work well. In fact, on one guitar, I saw a person use it, and the way that it attached to the guitar neck, this was years ago, but the way it attached actually rubbed a little raw spot right through the finish. And so I'm of the opinion that it's best just to play the heck out of the guitar and let it break in and wear in naturally.
I like this. But I thought tone right was that thing that I had to rub on my hands so I was a better player. Well, I got that one wrong.
News for me.
Okay, good question here. There is, what we see. Oh, Evan Smith. Will we see a baritone acoustic with V class? If so, what shapes?
Oh yeah, you bet. That's another guitar that's waiting its turn, because that system can be adapted to a baritone guitar very, very well. So yeah, it's waiting its turn.
Love it. Well, people, I think it must be the holidays. People want baritones. We got another baritone question. Baritone GS Mini?
That probably wouldn't be great. It's when you start combining opposites like that, super small body, super short, with something big like a long scale length that you really want for a baritone, they tend to not go together very well. So that one probably wouldn't work as good. That's actually what made the GS Mini bass so difficult. I mean, that thing took forever. It was years that we worked on it. And I loved the idea, but ultimately we ended up having to create an entirely different string, or different type of string, in order to make that thing work. So when you combine opposites like that, that can be a real challenge.
It's interesting. I didn't think about that. The opposites like that. That's interesting.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the physics of instrument building. I mean, if you have a low register instrument, a low frequency like that actually is very large. It requires a lot of string length. It requires a lot of soundboard size. It takes a lot to create that entire waveform. And so everything wants to get big. And you see that throughout every instrument tradition, everywhere in the world. I mean, if you're looking at brass instruments, the small ones play high pitches, the big ones like a tuba play low pitches. On string instruments, it tends to be that way. You have something like a mandolin playing high, the real high frequency notes. You have something like a bass or a guitarron or bajo quinto or sexto or something making the big, low, powerful notes. Low register sounds tend to be best suited for bigger instruments. And so that's the challenge, is it feels like you're working uphill when you try to do something contrary to that.
Well, thank you, Andy. That's great. Speaking of guitar size, we have a question. Alan, question for Mr. Powers. I love when people write that. I love that. Why the change to GC body size on 12 strings instead of the traditional GA?
Okay, so in that one, what I wanted to do was use, I like a 12 string that has that shimmery sound, right? And so to get that, a lot of times a 12 string is using, aside from the octave strings, you're using what amounts to an extra light guitar string set. So if you look at the individual gauges in a 12 string set, it's typically like a 10 through 47 for your primary or your fundamental string. So it's relatively low tension, relatively small inertia for each one of those strings. And then you've got that aspect, but then to withstand the string tension of the whole set, you have to build a body very strong. So you need to brace it more heavily and with stronger parts. The larger or wider the body is, the exponentially larger the parts need to be, which those small individual strings have a hard time getting these things in motion. And so when I started going the other direction, going towards a grand concert guitar, it just worked better and better and better. And so ultimately went right to the 12 fret, 12 string version on the smallest at the time grand concert body shape, because that was a great scale length to use. It was a great width, great body length. The balance point of it with the 12 fret neck was real good. Everything just started to fall into place, because again, you're not working on the contrary elements. you're putting together things that naturally want to work together. So conceivably, yeah, it would work and it could be made to work, but I'm not sure it would work as well as the grand concert version.
Interesting. I saw a question earlier. I can't find it, so I'm just going to ask it. How many tools do you have, Andy?
Oh, how many
I have no
chisels
idea.
does Andy have? That's
Yeah,
what
how
somebody
many
asked.
chisels? That's what it was. How many chisels do you have?
Yes.
I don't know. I have a lot more chisels than I have shirts. I'll tell you that.
Again,
And do you
where are
name
you,
your
Andy? You're in
chisels?
your
Do you
walk-in
name them,
closet.
Andy?
Do you name them?
Yes. Do you name
No,
your
they're
chisels? Do you name your guitars?
typically they have actually a numbering system. Like for gouges, they'll have a width and then a sweep. You know, so a gouge is like the curvy, like it cuts a little like a smiley face kind of thing. And so convention has, if you're using like a curved one like that, it's got a number for the sweep and a number for the width. Other ones have different profiles, different markings, but no, they don't get named. They're just tools. There are a lot of them, but yeah.
All right.
David responded to Andy's question about how he tunes his guitars. Do you see it in 708?
Okay.
He said he likes to tune down the 324 CE, like tune it down a full step. So he leaves one down a full step, one in traditional standard tuning.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And
This is
probably best to use the that's not that far off. So you could probably use a traditional string set for both of those. But yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, it was kind of interesting. Like I had a long discussion with an artist named Jacob Collier recently. I built a couple of 5-string guitars for him. And he had a really interesting way of tuning it. So we had this, we were chatting about that. And the idea is that it's a very parallel tuning. I mean, it's 5 strings, so it's a bit different. But he's tuning in all even fourths and fifths and omitting the 3rd step out of the guitar. And so you have, for a lot of different colors, it makes the fingering layout almost like it was halfway between an octave mandolin and a guitar, like a tenor guitar and a guitar. It's a really interesting thing. And so, yeah, I've been thinking about that quite a bit lately.
He has a real rhythmic way of playing. It's interesting. I like him. All right, let's get back to some questions. I had this up for a second. When guitars are broken in, like a walnut over time, goes its own direction, how much is attributable to the player? That's what you said earlier. Depending on player, pick used, coffee, how much coffee they've had.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
The way, in my opinion, the way that a person uses the guitar does affect the way that the guitar will, call it, break in. I mean, that's kind of an umbrella term for a lot of different physical changes that go on in the guitar. But if a person is playing an instrument with a real like vigorous strumming style, like they're using it as a rhythm guitar, they're playing forcefully with heavy pick, maybe heavy strings, you go 20 years down the road and you compare that guitar to one that was played delicately as a finger style instrument. I mean, even let's say it was the same model, same basic guitar to begin with, those two guitars will be different from each other. They won't sound the same. I mean, there was a really neat archtop guitar I played, I don't know how many years ago. It was a long time ago. But it was a really neat, it was late 50s archtop that John D'Angelico had built. Really cool. It was one of his New Yorker guitars. Yeah. Really neat guitar, big blonde one. The thing had been played like crazy. I mean, there's not much guitar left, right? The finish that was still there was like this bright orange. It was obviously like a smoker guitar, you can tell, like, let's say you've worked in repair enough. You know what a smoker guitar smells like.
Yeah.
You work on it, you do a finish repair on a smoker guitar and you know it.
Yeah.
This was
Yeah.
definitely one of those. That guitar had been played so hard and for so long, every one of the chords had a different sound coming out of the guitar. You'd play an A major chord and it sounded like an organ or something. You move to a different chord shape or a different key, and the whole character of the guitar would change. It was so fascinating. Wow. And you could see by the way the frets had worn what keys the player had played in mostly, and the way that they had played it. And, you could kind of tell, like every guitar has forensics, it's got its evidence of how a person was using it. And you could see like this person liked playing these keys with these chord shapes. And when you played those keys and those chord shapes, the whole character of the guitar changed. It was pretty remarkable. But to me, the way a person plays the guitar does change it.
Love it. Speaking of playing and playability, Andy, how can the action be set on a bigger guitar like a Grand, Pacific, or Dreadnought size? I like the sound of a bigger guitar in medium strings, but a low action. Does this work?
Well, yeah, of course it works.
How low?
It just comes. The actual measurement is a little tricky because it fluctuates from guitar to guitar. Okay. But when you think of string height and the distance between the string and the tops of the frets, we're not really looking at the fretboard here. We're looking at the top of the frets. So if you were to imagine like an invisible plane that just hit the very top of every one of the frets, the distance between the bottom of the string and the top of those things is like a mechanical limiter. That will limit how much amplitude the string can have. So if you have very, very low action, the player will strike the string is going to bounce off the frets and then start vibrating, but it can't vibrate at an amplitude any larger than that distance, right? And so that functionally limits your headroom. It's a mechanical compressor. It's like a limiter that limits how much volume you could actually have out of the guitar. And so once you know what range you're comfortable in, as far as dynamic range like that, you can set the action wherever you want. I mean, you could conceivably, put the strings almost on the tops of the frets, and every one of the notes will still work if the frets are in really good shape and the setup is very accurate. But your dynamic range out of that guitar is going to be next to nothing because there's no room for the string to vibrate anymore. In fact, I've built some electric guitars for guys like that who are really into like the Stanley Jordan, like tapping two-handed touch sort of technique. There was a guy here in San Diego who was really great musician, but he would play two guitars in that style simultaneously. So I built him a pair of electric guitars. Man, I think the strings they had only a few thousandths of an inch of clearance between the bottom of the string and the tops of the frets. It was like right down there. There was almost nothing there. You could not play the guitar as a normal guitar. But for his style, we had these ultra powerful pickups real close to the string. Sounded great, worked great for what he was doing. And so if you want to take the sound, like the body, and get that like powerful, supportive kind of sound and feel out of a large body guitar, but you want very low action on it, sure, you can do that. You just have to decide how much dynamic range that you ultimately want.
Thank you, Andy. Here's a good question. Oak? What about an oak guitar?
Yes. Actually, it can sound very good. I mean, a lot of people would point to like the pallet guitars that we've made, out of white oak. Those might have been red oak. I think they were white oak. But it was a pallet, full of nails and all that kind of stuff. But white oak can sound quite good. It's pretty interesting sounding wood. I like it best when it's quarter sawn, which you actually get a beautiful ray fleck from the medullary rays of oak. It's quite pretty. It tends to look a little like furniture, because it's such popular furniture wood. But yeah, there's definitely potential there.
Hey, Jay, I have a question. Oh, no, you do that one first. Do that one first.
Real quick. Okay.
Yeah.
Can we expect to see the Grand Symphony line expand into other series soon? Interested. 516, 616. Thoughts?
That one, the Grand Symphony with the second sound hole and scooped cutaway job, that's a pretty difficult one to tune well. Not so much as in tuning the strings, but to refine the structure of the guitar to be voiced in the way that we want to. And so we don't have immediate plans for other woods or other options in that, but I do really love the design. I love the way it works. And so that one is kind of a slow moving set of builds. So I would say eventually you'll see more woods in that, but that one will take me a little bit of time to work out all the details.
That being said, real quick, Lindsay, when
Yep.
we were in Vegas, we had all gone
Mhm.
to dinner after one of our days, and there was a
Mhm.
bar, and there was two gentlemen playing live music, and one of the fellas playing guitar
That's
had
right.
a Builder's Edition 816, and it was like
816.
there was a whole flock of Taylor folks like cheering. Like we were so pumped to see that
That guitar
guitar.
is just such a neat sound. I mean,
Oh,
the sound that comes out of that guitar is such a fun experience.
yeah, for
It's so
sure.
funny. Before I ask my question, that actually is somebody's question in the feed. This is very early on. Tex Hangs just put a comment that we actually had an email. He might have been the one that emailed it, but mentioning that particular guitar, the 816 Builder's Edition with that sound port, when you play with the pick, it doesn't bother hearing aids. And I remember you wrote back a really thoughtful response on why that
Yeah.
might be.
That was interesting because I remember that some player had written in, and that player was regularly performing in like an elderly care facility or going around to different elderly care facilities. And the player had observed that when they used, I forget what the other models were. I think it was a 700 series guitar and something else. That he noticed that his audience would say, yeah, that guitar sounds kind of buzzy. I don't like that one. And he got one of the 816 Builder's Edition guitars. And immediately every one of the listeners started coming up to him and commenting, man, I love the sound of that guitar. Just love the way that works. And they were curious why that was. And that was a really interesting use case because there's obviously one I hadn't thought of trying, but the way a hearing aid works is not a linear amplification of a spectrum. It over exaggerates like the harsh, the sibilants, the high frequency stuff that gives words or sounds definition. It's those sounds like the S and the T and the K and all those kind of harsh, thin, sharp sounds. It exaggerates that high frequency stuff. And so on most guitars, what you would hear is something that's very like overly aggressive sounding, almost harsh sounding, because it's amplifying this upper register stuff and disproportionately so. But with the 816, because the way that guitar is voiced, it has such a lyrical, smooth quality, even when those kinds of harsh sounds get amplified, because there wasn't much of that to begin with. It's going to just sound sweet and pleasant. And so it was a really interesting case to go, oh yeah, that makes total sense, because these people are observing exactly what we built into the guitar.
Yeah, that's cool. A real case scenario.
It was really fascinating.
Yeah. So my question it's really Craig Byers' question. He asked it back at like 6 o'clock, 6:30. And I'm interested is how much time does Andy P spend building versus designing versus everything else? And is it enough to satisfy you?
Yeah, that was one of the that was one of the ones I had held. I loved it.
Were you holding out? I'm sorry, Jay.
No.
There are not enough hours in the day to do everything that would be interesting to do. I mean, that's ultimately it's almost embarrassing. I feel like I'm blushing to admit it, but one of my concerns is that maybe I won't live long enough to try everything that I think would be interesting to try. There's a lot of really neat stuff to learn about and work on. And so in the course of a day, it tends to swing from season to season, from week to week. Some weeks I'll be working almost the whole week, day after day, on a design, some sort of, the criteria, the structure, the whatever it is. And then maybe I'll transition into building that design. There are some eras where all you're doing is making sawdust and you're working on these guitars. Maybe it's a series of prototypes to try one variable at a time. I'll build the first guitar, the first prototype of something, and that's interesting. But as we go to develop the tooling for that, I'll kind of half build guitars and then incorporate one piece of production tooling at a time, and I'll build the rest of the guitar by hand around that. So I'll have multiples of the same prototype to verify that these tools are building the pieces that we want them to be building. And so it kind of goes through seasons where you're doing more of one thing or more of another thing. And so it never feels like it's quite enough of everything. But I guess that's one of the things that keeps it exciting every morning. You wake up, you have that first cup of coffee and go, all right, there's a lot to try. Cool, this is going to be great.
How often does our tooling department or engineering, look at one of your designs and go, Andy, you're nuts?
I'll pass that one. I'd like to think that they've got enough scar tissue built up that they're used to it now. I mean, it's not an easy task. I get it. I totally understand it. And there are times that I'll want to try something and I can't even bring myself to say it or ask somebody to build a tool or cut a part or something. So I'll just go do it myself. I go, let me just do the first one. I don't even want to explain this yet. Let me just try it. And then I'll show you later once I've built a handful of them. And so sometimes I end up doing that. Just going, I know this is weird. I'm going to just do it when nobody's looking.
I love that. I love it. Do you find that in a challenge of its own to build and you might have answered this on previous prime times, maybe I wasn't on, but to build guitars that can be, in production, like mass production versus like from your background, building boutique kind of whatever you wanted, one-offs. Like, do you find it harder to make a design that could be boom, 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 mass produced?
Well, it's a challenge in every respect. It's a challenge in every respect because there's no point in building something that can't be built, right? That's not serving anybody well. It's not serving musicians. It's doing nothing but creating frustrations. But the flip side is that a captain of a ship they have to have their head in the clouds and their head in the stars so that they know which direction to go, right? If the captain of a ship isn't watching the stars, they won't know where to navigate. And so some of these ideas that do seem crazy, they might be crazy the first day I try one, but in 5 years, once the thing is kind of steeped and been developed and refined, and we've developed, maybe made some advances in our manufacturing, what was once crazy and outlandish can become a reality. In fact, that's how the Builder's Edition guitars with that crazy cutaway came about. I built the first one by hand, and it was a challenge. I mean, it was not easy. It's difficult woodworking. And the first time our engineering and tooling guys looked at it, I mean, I could literally see the color go out of their faces. If I was showing the guitar around, we're sitting in the conference room, and literally no one says a word. I mean, this is a big group of some of the best machinists and the best engineers around, and not one person says a word. And they're looking at me going, do you know what that's going to take? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, but it's going to be great. We just got to slowly work at this thing until it's good. And so a lot of what we build at Taylor ends up that way. It starts as this thing where you go, oh man, how is this ever going to work? This seems like it would be impossible. And then you slowly work at it until you realize, well, this is how you make strides forward. This is how you make strides forward. You kind of put your head in the clouds and go, yeah, I know that we can go forward from here. We'll develop it. We'll figure it out.
So good.
Nice.
Oh man, I remember when I saw that guitar for the first time and went, huh. And then I heard Andy play it and I said, oh. I just made noise. It was wonderful. All right. We got a couple more questions and then we'll get to Lindsay's question and wrap up the show. Sorry if we didn't answer all your questions. We try as hard as we can, but we want to give respect to Mr. Powers and let him get some rest so he can make some new things tomorrow. All right. Oh, here's one. All right, here we go. Caleb, will Taylor make flat top mandolins? Ooh, money would fly out of his bank account.
Well, I don't know if I care too much about money flying out of your bank account, but that would be kind of cool. I built a lot of mandolins. I really like playing them. That would be fun. The first one that comes to mind is like that Gibson Army Navy that was built during, I think it was World War I. They built a real inexpensive kind of round sort of shaped mandolin that they used to sell at military installations. Really cool instrument. Yeah, maybe someday.
All right.
I mean, a mandolin is very different in that the strings are pushing on the top rather than pulling. And so
Right.
a true flat top or something resembling a flat top where you're taking a block of wood and sawing a thin piece of wood off that to use as the top of the instrument, that can be a little challenging when you're to incorporate into an instrument where the strings are pushing on the top rather than twisting. So it takes some thinking, but yeah, I've considered it.
Love it. All right, here we go. Got another one. Mr. Powers. How about Adirondack spruce for V-class bracing? As far as I remember, Taylor used to offer Adirondack X bracing.
Yes. Now that's an interesting scenario because we do use Adirondack spruce, especially on an X brace guitar. I've built some with the V design, but the structure of the V is so different and so much stronger parallel to the strings. The inherent stiffness of Adirondack spruce oftentimes is too much. It becomes so rigid that I wanted to keep making the parts smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller to get the flexibility where I wanted it. Because remember, the V, it's a balancing act between these different parts. And those pieces became so small that they were a little hard to handle, hard to make, hard to tool, hard to make consistently well. And the tolerance factor, if you look at tolerances as a percentage of what the size of the part is, maybe a tolerance of 0.02 of an inch on something ½ inch tall, well, that may not be that much, but a tolerance of 0.02 of an inch on a piece that's only 20 thousandths tall is actually quite a lot. And so with the Adirondack spruce, we haven't gone there because usually it's just too stiff.
Interesting. V-class bracing. Just moving a couple of sticks around and calling it. Never mind. Okay. Sorry, I had to. Here's a great question. I'm really excited. Evan Smith, if urban ash resembles mahogany, will it see urban ash on tops?
I would expect to. I've actually been working with that for quite some time because a top has a little different purpose in a guitar and there's a different set of expectations for it. But yeah, I've had some good success with that. And I, like everything we do, we want to make sure it's all the way over the line before we do it on a larger scale. But yeah, I could see that working.
That's awesome. There was a Tonewood question about a Oh boy. Did you see it? Oh, here it is. I have a Academy 12E. Sounds and plays great. Do you think this guitar will ever be made with different wood types?
Well, with the Academy, yeah, I can see building some with different woods. That one's a little different because the back and sides are made with veneers laminated together, or what we call layered wood construction, because it's not a laminate in like a composite type of thing, but it's layered of real wood. And so what you hear when you change the back and side woods isn't as dramatic as what it would be if it were a solid piece, like a single thickness piece of wood. And so, yeah, I'm sure at some point we'll build some with different veneers. In fact, I've tried a couple, just for the electronic things, with different materials, but you won't necessarily hear a dramatic change in the way that guitar sounds. Changing the top wood on that guitar would matter a lot. That'll make a very significant change in the way the guitar functions.
Incredible. All right. One last question. Maybe two questions here, and then we'll go to Lindsay's question real quick. This one was really interesting. Great question. Keyman 3. How do you choose strings for prototypes? Maybe gauges? How do you string? You try them, and do you try them with different strings? That's interesting.
That is a great question. I actually try. Well, I was going to say I try all guitars, but I can't say all. I'd say most guitars I will try with a very predictable standard set of strings. So we use right now we're using the Elixir phosphor bronze strings in production on the majority of our guitars. So I know those strings very well. And it's a nice, like kind of middle of the road string. And so usually I'll start there when I string the guitar up so that I have kind of like a nice benchmark, a good reference point. And then based on that and kind of what I was anticipating out of the guitar when I built it, there's usually some other types of strings that I'll want to try to see what those other flavors are like. Because there are a lot, I mean, I say a lot, there are a myriad of variables within different string compositions, different alloys, different styles of wrapping. I mean, even, you look at the low E string out of a light gauge set, and for most people, that's like a 53 thousandths thick string. But even from two different brands, there's going to be maybe a slightly different size or composition core wire. The alloy, the wrap wire around it is a little different. Maybe the relationship between the two is different. The annealing process, there are a bunch of factors. So yeah, I'll usually use like an Elixir phosphor bronze set kind of thing as a benchmark to listen to a guitar. And then I might try like a bright bronze, like an 80-20 string on there. And then maybe one of D'Addario's nickel bronze strings for a totally different flavor. I like that a lot. But you start to try different things to run the gamut to see how it will get flavored when it's out, really getting used.
Interesting. Okay. Ooh, I got a good question. Well, we're going to use that in a few minutes here. Andy, here's the one I wanted to ask. Good old-fashioned Mr. Powers. Say what wood he prefers for a top spruce, mahogany versus koa. Spruce versus mahogany versus koa.
I know I'm supposed to say one of those, and I'm not sure that I can because I got to know what kind of guitar it is. I'm so sorry.
Fine.
Mostly I'm going to say spruce. I'd say spruce because it just always works.
That's fair.
So I'm going to say I like a spruce top.
That is a great answer.
And I'm like dying because I want to say that I love a mahogany top and I love a koa top too. But I'm going to say spruce.
And we'll do one last question here. Sorry if we didn't get all your questions. We will have Mr. Powers back again. So get ready for your question, Lindsay. But this last question's pretty great. Andy, what is the current situation with supply for more exotic woods like rosewood and cocobolo. Zebo, cocobolo. And what does the future of these woods look like?
Right. So some of those, every one of the unique species, we say rosewood, and that encompasses a wide variety of species. I mean, if you're talking under the same blanket, if you're talking about African blackwood and Brazilian rosewood in the same breath as cocobolo, which is Dalbergia retusa, if you're talking about it in terms of Honduran rosewood or East Indian rosewood, or the alternate, the lesser known Indian rosewood. There's actually two. We use East Indian rosewood typically, Dalbergia latifolia. Every one of those has a different outlook. So some of those, the outlook sadly is not good. It's just not good. And so I'm not going to use them. I would encourage their preservation. And I'd encourage doing what is possible to continue planting, replanting if it's possible. Other versions like East Indian rosewood, that's actually amazing. I mean, that's basically an urban wood in India. You know, those are largely grown as shade trees, and every one of those logs is well shepherded. You know, it's a very ecologically sound wood to use. Every one of those logs is harvested and goes through a government auction, and it goes to always highest and best usage, which is typically guitars. But those I would expect to be around for a long time. Those are in really good shape. Cocobolo is a bit of a question mark because of the parts of the world or the parts of the forest that it's coming from. That's why we haven't been using much cocobolo. We haven't bought any. We haven't sourced any in quite some time because we don't feel great about the places and ways that people have harvested it in what we've seen more recently. And so we're not pursuing that right now. The situation might change when we learn more. I mean, you hear about a project that people are doing in this forest or that, and you know that the circumstances change everything. One of the circumstances that is a real bright spot right now is Honduran rosewood. We've been getting and working with some communities to get Honduras rosewood, which is, I mean, of my personal ladder of rosewoods, that's like top rung. I get like, you know, fanboy star eyes over Honduran rosewood. It's so good. It's like one of the most musical sounding of all the rosewoods. And we've tapped into a set of communities where that work is being done very, very well. And it's only being harvested in an ecologically sound way at a rate that has a really bright long-term future. So that's one that we're really excited about. That's why we're getting to use it on our presentation series guitars. At some point, we'll get to do maybe some limited editions with maybe like I'd love to build a 900 series guitar. We've done a handful of them that way. I mean, it's just such a great sounding wood. You know, so that's one that looks like it has a pretty good outlook for it. And so it really depends, because when you look at some of these materials, you've got to take the whole picture into account. It's the forest and the trees, but it's also the way that it's being harvested. It's the transportation, it's the logistics, it's the long-term outlook, it's the political climate. You know, there's a lot of different winds that blow over those forests, and they all sort of have to be right for us to want to participate in it.
Love it. Thanks, Andy. Thanks for answering the feed's questions. I think it's time for Lindsay's question, though. Hey, Andy, do you have a song?
What will you say? What will you say? More of a question than a test. Listen to love. Do your best. What will you say? What will you say to Lindsay?
Man, you got to think
So
for
good.
those major 7 chords, don't you?
He really does. Loves those major 7, especially when he's playing a nylon. They just sound good.
Oh, yeah.
They sound good.
Gotta play
Absolutely.
major.
So, okay, Jay, I have kind of 2 questions, because one of them is a little bit more typical Lindsay. One is just like, I want to know because he talked about it last time he was on. So which one should I start with?
You choose. You're
All right,
stumping
the one-
Andy. I'm not.
Okay, well, this is just one I want to know because he talked about it last time. He showed us his shop and he was working on like I think it was a 12-foot
Surfboard.
redwood surfboard, the one that's been passed down to you. Did you?
Oh, yeah.
You finished it?
Yeah.
Did you take it for a
I
ride? What was
did.
it like?
I did.
I think people wanted to know.
I finished shaping that board. It was kind of an interesting thing because it was a single uncut plank of California coast redwood. And a couple other older shapers had started it long time ago, and both of them had passed away before they ever actually shaped the thing. They got the blank cut and kind of templated out into like an early 1920s style board. And so I got that, and this last summer I shaped that and went and rode that. That was quite an experience because it was almost exactly what surfers would have been riding in this area exactly 100 years ago. And so it was a very interesting experience. It was a lot of fun, actually. I had a really neat glide. You know, it's a different kind of sensation as it moves through the water. It's not so much that it's floating on the water, but it's more like harvesting the energy that's pushing through the water. And so the sensation of glide was pretty remarkable. That was great. I loved it.
Nice. That could have been 2 minutes of sports, Jay. I messed that up. See?
Well, here's the deal.
Oh,
Here's the deal. We're cutting sports tonight because before you
Okay.
ask your next question, because that was 2 minutes of sports, so we're cutting sports.
Yes.
But then Sambo 76, how's the surfing these days, Andy? Are you shredding some winter waves in San Diego? And watch out for sharks.
Thanks. As of this morning, it was almost dead flat. There is almost no swell energy in the water, so it went micro tiny small, but we have had a really fun, enjoyable run of swell from a variety of directions and very favorable wind and weather conditions. So yeah, we've been having a good time. It's
2 minutes of sports.
It's been fun.
Yeah. All right. We don't have to do that part. Thank you. Lindsay.
It's funny that Lindsay mentioned that. It's funny you mentioned that because I had lyrics about the board in the song.
Well, we're still going to have a song.
Okay.
Okay. She's going to ask her question.
We're out of practice. Okay. My typical question that I ask is usually just get to know a fun side or a different side of random side of Andy. What is like your go-to favorite sandwich spread? We got avocado, chipotle. Are you?
I'm an avocado fan, big time. Yeah, of most varieties. In fact, we've gone so far. Lately, we've been working on a little family farming project that'll be mostly avocado, kind of a mixed orchard of avocado, citrus, some low chill apple, low chill pear, a couple other fruits, but
just straight avocado, oh, he's gone. I was trying to see if he did spicy avocado. And he's gone.
Did his phone die?
Maybe. That happened to me 2 weeks ago.
Did his phone die? His phone died.
Well, there you have it. There you have it, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen,
avocado.
classic avocado. Andy Powers. That was perfect. Hey, Lund.
Yeah.
Do you want to sing your 2 minutes of sports song?
Sure. Or should I just do the outro? Is he coming back? I don't know.
He might not be coming back. I like how let's be as quiet as possible.
2 minutes of sports, another round with Andy P. Sport for Andy, it's not his life. If you want to talk sports, talk to his wife. We should stick to waves or borrowed chords. But last time we talked, he was building a board on 2 minutes of sports.
Past his bedtime.
That was so good.
Andy Powers is out. That's so
Apparently
good.
something happened.
All right. We're going to go into trivia real
good.
quick. We don't need sports because we talked about surfing. We always talk about surfing when Andy's on. I'm wearing a hat, San Diego Padres hat, because Andy is from San Diego, as we know. All right, trivia. You guys know the drill here. If you get the question right in the feed, the first answer, the correct answer I see in the feed, go back, phone. I will, if you are the winner with the right answer, we have one prize tonight. We're giving away another Taylor Sense with a care pack. So you're going to get some cleaner, a rag, some picks, maybe a little tuner that we have, and a black suede strap. So that's a big prize. So we got a big question here. All right. If you win, please email us at primetime@taylorguitars.com, and we will get your stuff shipped out to you. Keep in mind, holiday time, shipping guitars is really important, so shipping might be a little slow. Well, you'll get your prize. Don't worry. I got you. All right, here we go. This question is amazing. So back to my I'm grateful for thing. I'm also grateful for that we are able to talk to our founders anytime we need. And sometimes we're at a loss for trivia questions. Well, I reached out to Mr. Kurt and I said, hey, Kurt, I need some help. So he helped me with this question. You ready? I love it. It's going to be very difficult, but if you've read any of our Taylor books, maybe Bob's book, maybe our 30 Years book, maybe Wood and Steel, you'll be able to get the answer. Ready? Here we go. When Bob and Kurt and Steve bought the American Dream Guitar Shop, what was the original name of their company on the contract before it became Taylor Guitars? Oh.
Most days it don't matter how much useless stuff you know. Here on the Primetime part of the show is trivia. Put your knowledge on the line. Trivia.
No one knows.
Win Taylor Sense from Primetime. Trivia.
Oh, Eric! I think he's got it. He did it.
I think so. He has it.
Eric, Westland Music Company. Yes, if you have our 30-year coffee table book, there's an actual picture in there of the contract.
Crazy.
Wow. Eric.
Congratulations, Eric.
Congratulations, Eric.
True fan.
Wow. Now they're all pouring in. Good job, guys. All right, Mr. Powers, thank you so much, Andy, for Whoa, why'd that happen? Oh, let me go back here and turn that off. There we go. Eric, you know the deal. Send us an email at primetime@taylorguitars.com. Andy Powers, thank you so much for stepping in and joining us this week.
Yep.
Andy Lund, it's always great to see you. And Lindsay, everybody have a great Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Take some time with your family and don't get any arguments about guitars. That's not a fun situation. All right, Andy Lund, do you want to take us out? We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Wait, we'll see you next week on Primetime. Thank you very much.
What was it? What was it? It was prime time. It was prime time. What the heck was it? Well, that was prime time. That was the thankful prime time. And he's thankful for urban woods. Jay thanked his marketing friends. Our production team is way better than good. Yeah, Lindsay wants a Cedar GT. Boutique water is her jam. Thank you all for watching. Enjoy your turkey, tofu, and ham. Things you learn on Prime Time before Thanksgiving. Thanks a lot, everybody. See you soon on the Prime Time.
See you next time. We love you.